Hello and welcome to 10 Thoughts with Kobe and Kien. I don't remember if we had an intro that we did every time or not, but this is it now.
Yeah.
What's up, Kien?
Glad to have you back. We can work on our secret handshake for next time.
Yeah. We'll get Also, the hard part about those is figuring out where they move the
Left.
boxes because it's always
Yeah.
different from the video call meetings that we have.
Well, one of our editors would definitely mess with us. Push our hand over here. They wouldn't let us get away with it. But you were gone for a good week here. What were you up to? Anything? I know
it was a good week.
You really couldn't do much.
What travel, especially in the United States and especially in Los Angeles, there are just insane numbers for COVID cases. So travel not really an option. I went hiking a decent amount, and the best part, I went grinding the solo queue. I shot up to Diamond 185 LP.
Ooh.
So I'm super hyped right now. Like every year I try and break into masters and like take a picture. I failed last year. I never got in one time, so I really want to this year. But then I lost 3 games already today, so I have dropped back down for my vacation grind that I was able to get done.
What are you playing to climb right now?
So I play whatever team fight jungler I think is best for whatever team comp. Like if we need tank, then I play Nunu. I do mostly like whatever's high win rate. Nunu, and then either Fiddle or Karthus if we need AP. And for AD, I do Kha'Zix, which isn't really team fight. It's this assassin. He's one of the best or highest win rate AD junglers right now. And I've always loved playing Kha'Zix. And since they buffed his isolation damage, 20% is actually huge.
Yeah.
So I try and do just mostly like single target camps like Gromp buffs and maybe wolves because those are easy to take out. But then hiding in a brush somewhere to get those 100% to zeros on people, and then you just snowball.
I can't wait to see this montage. It feels like every time Kha'Zix is strong, you get a video on Reddit every day of like, oh, Kha'Zix so skilled, RQ.
Because it only takes a couple of those early kills where like you do have to put into a lot of thought of like, all right, the other jungler is going this way or that way or whatever, and you get into a bush, and if somebody walks towards it, like they're just so dead now with the buffed isolation damage, because you have jump to chase after them also. And it only takes a couple of those before you've got like your full lethality build, and you're just doing it to everybody.
Speaking of new changes, though, a new jungle champion has entered the fray. I just kind of curious your thoughts. I actually ended up playing a few flex games with some friends last night, and we ran into Lillia a few times, and I'm actually still not sure what she actually does, even after playing a few games with her. Seemed like a Hecarim Zoe hybrid kind of thing. What are your early thoughts on this Lillia jungle pick?
I haven't seen it in any of the games. And it hasn't been banned either in any of the ranked games. I think people are just like hands off right now on it, which is kind of weird because I do know they try and design all the newly released champions to be overpowered so that when you don't know how to play it, you still can get enjoyment and people won't go full hands. So I'm going to try and play it with, some flex Q first and incorporate it. But on just looking at the abilities in the video, I think the funnest part is going to be using the passive move speed. Trying to stack that up, and then the long range sleep. The combo of, I think it's the E that throws the seed just indefinitely.
Yeah, indefinitely. It's
we
were very confused when we saw that thing. We were like, oh, what the heck's going on?
That thing comes rolling down the lane, and you just get slept from a Lillia that just recalled or something. Those are probably going to be the 2 big things. But I didn't want to rush to pick it up because anytime there's a mage that's like that's kind of close range, I have a hard time choosing between building the defense or to be close range or building the AP. But if especially at the beginning, if her numbers are good enough and you can get away with like the health AP items, then that'll be really strong.
Yeah, definitely seems strong. Do you think it's just based on the kit? Do you think it's the type of thing that we'll see like in pro play? Because it's kind of hard to gauge right now.
I mean, since she does have the capability of CCing a full 5-person team with the sleep, if you're able to tag people, I can definitely see that being very useful. It's going to depend to me a lot if her early game is that weak, because they talked about you have to kite camps as well, like worrying about how much damage you're going to take. So we'll see about how her early stages clear up, but definitely when you have those CC capabilities in a kit, it has a possibility of showing up.
Can't wait to get the first 5-person sleep in a pro game. You're gonna get Twitch chat going crazy with the Zoe welcome rider kind of meme. So,
or you see one where they throw the seed like down the river at somebody, it misses, it goes all the way up and hits the enemy top laner, and they're just like, okay, I guess we get that one instead.
We got that. We got the long range Baron steal. There's a lot.
Yeah.
How long before we start seeing it in like support or mid as well? It's like all these new champions that come out these days feels like they're all good in like 4 or 5 roles.
Yeah.
So it'd be exciting to see. Before we jump into LCS, though, I have one final thing with the new patch I would like your opinion on. What is your favorite Spirit Blossom skin?
Ooh, so the one I'm gonna buy first is Kindred, because that's the jungler. And
I think the splash art for the Kindred is my favorite. Like that one.
Yeah, the splash art.
It's so good.
But watching the video, the Riven one, when Riven stuns, and
with the stun.
Yeah, the big purple avatar comes up. I was like, okay, that's gonna be a good seller. That one's insane.
That one's so cool. Where I feel like you're gonna get I actually locked in Riven last night when I was playing, and I haven't played Riven in like 3 years because I thought the skin was out already because I wanted to buy it. I was bamboozled, and then I was one of those. I was like 0-4 so I didn't even have a cool skin while I was feeding. But it's one of those skins where you're gonna see these Rivens. You're gonna walk in the lane. They're gonna level W at 2, and then just press W just to see it. And then they're going to all in immediately because they just wasted their W. It's 100% going to happen. It's 100% going to be worth it as well. Yeah. Super dope line.
It's funny because so I'm actually really good friends with, I don't know if you remember this. This is probably another boomer comment, but if people remember Best Riven NA.
I remember.
Yeah, he was a really famous streamer. He would play no camera, just, Riven and music. And I've been friends with him since he was like 13 years old. And
I did not know that.
He was really young.
Okay,
When he started playing.
Yeah.
But kind of like a Poe Belter story.
Yeah, I thought you meant like you knew him from like middle school or something. You like he's another boomer.
Yeah, but he's just in our Discord still, and we still play. He doesn't stream anymore or anything, but I always try and hype him up. I'm like, we need to get the return of BRNA streams, and he's like, never. I'm not going back, not doing it. So I'm like really hoping that this skin or something can at least reignite some passion for him, at least playing Riven again.
Yeah, I mean, the skin's sick. It's gotten a lot of hype already. This is going to be one of those skins that I hope gets a ton of other champions down the line. People are going to be like, oh, look, another Yasuo skin or whatever. It's like, just give it to me. I want to see it,
Yeah. I need any OG BRNA fans, by the way, to all peer pressure him, start tweeting at his old Twitter account to get him to stream with the new skin.
Yeah, make sure you leave a message so you can come in and you can point him to the YouTube comments. Be like, look, people miss you, buddy.
Yeah.
I remember you. So there you go. There's one. I will leave one message.
All right, nice. We got Kien.
All right. So you missed or you didn't miss, you were just not on air this past weekend. We had a few games that I thought were maybe the worst games we've had all year, and we had a few games that were also excellent. I'm curious, you've had a chance to catch back up now and get up to speed with the games,
I got spoiled on everything before I get into all the VODs.
Was there anything that really stood out to you immediately? Like this is a game that you're like,
obviously the Cloud9 losing another game because I was here for the 100 Thieves loss, but then the EG changing rosters and then just bombing out in that. Even just the draft of their first game when they're like, all right, we're making the switch. Goldenglue got signed. We're doing the Huni thing. And I'm just like, okay. And I was like, all support champions, basically. Yeah. We have like Oriana's the closest to a hard carry, and then you got a bunch of semi-supports.
Yeah, I mean, they've been harping on it. I've talked about this a bit as well. I mean, that draft was inexcusably bad. That might be the worst overall game I've seen from a team all year, which is, I mean, it's just crazy. Like, why did you when you bring in Huni, who is known to be this carry top laner, and we saw him do it with Gangplank the day after, and then you stick him on Karma, which is fine. Karma is a good lane bully, but then you have nothing else to support it. There's like literally, and even if Karma is a good lane bully, it's not the type of champion you think of Huni as being like, oh, this is what he's going to win the game with, right?
And if you even do that and you're like, oh yeah, Karma's also super useful later, like Doomby
Yeah.
uses it, Faker uses it,
Yeah.
and when they build Ardent Sensor and these types of
Yeah.
supporting things, and you're like, okay, well then you at least have a hyper carry to buff up,
Yeah.
right? With this champion that you're transferring a
Yeah.
lane bully into this. And
Yeah.
you're like,
Mm.
let me see that.
Yeah, I mean, you've been in those games where, like, because back in the day before positional queue had to happen, you would load into the game sometimes, and you would just have to type in what role you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember very distinctly, one of my rules was if I had more than one person say they were a support main, and sorry to all support mains out there, but if more than one person said they were a support main, I would just dodge 100%. There was never a situation in which I wanted to play a game with more than, I remember one time specifically, and this is the game that made me come up with this rule, is I had 3 support mains on my team.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, they're gonna be friendly players. We're gonna get in here. We're gonna work hard. We're gonna have some good teamwork. And we lost the game by like 7 minutes. Like we just got completely destroyed. It was you press tab and all 3 lanes are down like 30 CS. Yeah. One of those games you hate to see it as a jungler. That's what that EG draft was to me. It was like a bunch of that's what happened. Is like felt like a bunch of support mains queued into the same game, and they're like, okay, what support champion feels like it'd be good in mid lane? Like the old Janna mid Zkent pick, or
that's what I was gonna say, because I remember exactly what you're talking about, and I had a similar thing where I'd be super scared if we had a bunch of supports, but I would play some of the games if they were like, oh, no problem. Karma's a good example. This is a great support champion that they're like, all right, I'll play Karma top. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like Graves jungle or something like that, and I'll play it anyway. I would also, though, I would almost always dodge if there was another jungle main, because even if they seeded it to me and they're like, okay, you know what, you're higher rated, you can jungle. Even if they were cordial in Champ Select, as soon as you get into game, if you make one mistake, they're like, this idiot, like, oh, I should have taken jungle, you blah blah, like. So I would also never do multiple junglers.
Yeah, thank God for positional queuing. I cannot believe that, like, it's been so long since we've had like those old days of where you had to type in your stuff. But I kind of missed it because I actually climbed better because I'm actually better. Like I'm good on all 5 roles, or good enough on all 5 roles, and I feel like that actually benefited me because I think people who could feel well were more apt to climb. So
I was gonna say the big drawback is that I got way worse at every other role because I hyper specialized. I used to be like you. Like I actually played a lot of Katarina mid and Talon mid. Katarina and Talon. You're just like, oh well, I guess it kind of makes sense because I rummed a lot. But ever since the positional queue, like my other roles have just dropped off so much that now I have to dodge if I don't get jungle. Like even if I get my secondary choice, it's a pretty bad situation. So I was thinking, if I can just get to the point where I hit my ranked goal and I can just like take a screenshot, take a picture, then I'm going to commit to, when I play with friends in solo or flex queue or even solo queue, I'm actually going to commit to relearning either mid or AD carry. I've been having a lot of fun with AD carry specifically because, of course,
hold on, you're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to say you have fun with AD carry.
I mean, the second part is because I can queue with like my support friend that's really good and can teach me, and you have like a safety net there.
That's gonna be the title for this video: is Kobe thinks AD carry is fun. That's how we're gonna get Reddit, right? It's just jump on them there. So I started thinking about this during the EG draft. Surely in the history of League of Legends, there's been a time where a player has come very close to just actually dodging champion select in a professional game. And to me, that felt like a situation where if somebody had just dodged that queue and refused to play, I'd be like, I kind of agree that good. Thank you for saving us all 30 minutes. I'm sorry for about the fine you're about to take.
Yeah.
But, you did everybody else a favor.
Yeah. The only other scenario where I'd be okay with it, like it's something like that. The changes where you can't buy jungle items if you don't have smite now. If there's ever a game where someone loads in without smite, I was like, nobody wants to see this. Yeah. Just delete our whole team. But I completely agree. But the cool thing about that is, they go from that abomination of a game into, oh my goodness, like this strong performance versus Cloud9 where it's not just one point in the game where, watching it back, I was expecting, okay, maybe there was some big travesty. Cloud9 made this big blunder early on in the game, and then it just got out of their control, and they got smashed. No, it was back and forth. There were multiple points where EG had to again make another good play, and we had a lot of players stepping up. Huni's gangplank is something that people are always going to be like, oh my god, yeah, Huni, these specific champions. Those are something that teams are going to recognize. This is something that teams are going to be able to get around. But then you also had Zeyzal on his Alistar, and people were thinking back to Worlds performances and stuff, and they're like, oh my god, yes, now I remember why Zeyzal was a beast. And he's got this Hex Flash over, he's got these flanks, he's on top of the carries, really good engages, and Goldenglue on his specific champion. I feel like Zoe's got to be his best champion.
It's got to be his best champion.
It's got to be his best champion. So, they have this really strong performance where everybody's contributing a lot. Obviously, Bang is, one of the players that a lot of people have felt like they should be trying to play to the strengths of, picking him like stuff like Aphelios and letting him get to multiple core items so they can play around him. It's all those consistent parts. Plus, are people actually going to start targeting all these specific champions? Because if you start listing out every player on the team having these specific champions that you have to target, then you have to choose between those, and you may or may not have to give up OPs.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a real they also announced that they signed and lacked Goldenglue for the rest of the split. I think some people confused the language of it and thought that meant that they were going to play.
I thought that it was their fault that people confused the language, because that was confusing. They said we locked him in for the rest of the split.
Yeah, totally fair.
Locked him in. When lock in is when I lock my champion in and I'm playing a game. Like, I understand the confusion.
Yeah, totally fair. If you were confused by it, flame EG, whatever, at Evil Genius on Twitter, just tell them we sent you. Like, word your tweets better. But basically, what they signed Goldenglue for the rest of the split. That does not mean that we will not see the Jiizuke Kumo combo again. It just means that they do intend on rotating Goldenglue and Huni in. And I think one of the things that I found interesting about the pair is these two pairs are kind of opposite in the way I perceive their play style, which is in the Jiizuke Kumo combo. It's Jiizuke who's the playmaker, the aggressive guy, and Kumo is kind of the stable. Like, I don't think Kumo's had a bad split necessarily either. I don't know if it's been good, but he's been kind of consistent in top lane, right? Versus the Huni Goldenglue combo is the actual opposite, whereas in top lane, Huni's the aggressive, less stable one, and Goldenglue is the more stable, kind of consistent force. And I felt like that, I mean, that's a really interesting shift. And it's like, to your point about how Bang wants to play the game, it almost makes more sense to have the mid laner kind of be a little more stable, so that you just don't, because if you have an unstable mid lane, sometimes you just lose immediately, whereas you can recover more easily from an unstable top, from the way I look at it. So you can get to late game more often, which is what Bang wants. Like, if you get to a late game situation and you bangs on 3-4 items, you got to feel pretty comfortable in most fights you take, right?
It's pretty interesting theory that you're getting into, because if you do theory craft like the entire map, and you're saying, it makes more sense to have the stable mid laner, but an unstable top laner opposite your stable bot side. If you have the Huni trying to go Lucian and these types of things that require so much focus, then it could draw a lot of attention towards that side. And we have gone into a meta where roaming mids are so important. We're seeing Twisted Fate almost 100% pick ban in basically all regions across the world, and a lot of other champions with globals being super high priority. It definitely seems difficult for me to make the choice, especially when it comes down to, like you're saying, the individual player values. Obviously, most people are going to value Jiizuke and Huni, and they're like, oh, okay, this is our ideal combination. They're both imports right now. We can't put them together. And so then it becomes the mix and match of, this plus this. Is the entire sandwich actually better than this other sandwich? This one's got better bread, but this one's got way more meat. Honestly, I do think that this Goldenglue Huni one is overall a better sandwich. I don't know why I'm decided on sandwiches, but
I like sandwiches. I had one for lunch.
I haven't had lunch yet. Maybe that's why.
That's the same
but I think this is a really good sandwich, because something I wanted to bring up was a lot of people still throw a lot of kind of nuanced criticisms at Huni, and they just blanket him with all these different problems that we saw, on Clutch and on the various teams that he's kind of ping-ponged through since there's a lot of extra baggage with he got paid so much.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes people more kind of angry and frustrated. They're like, all right, well, you're getting paid this much, then, we're expecting this type of bar. But I thought it was really cool. I think it was Vulcan. Yeah, Vulcan gave this interview afterwards. I forget where I saw this, but he talked for a long time about how much Huni actually did for Clutch for all of the players, and how Huni will try and do more the more that he feels he has to carry a team.
Yeah.
And that all makes sense from looking at a lot of the plays that he very correctly got criticized for a lot of the a lot of the bad times where he's pushing out super aggressively, super risky, not respecting enemy junglers or not respecting enemy map movements later on in the game when they're trying to split push. But with Vulcan talking so highly of him, of not only his individual play, but also just how much he taught the rest of the players of the team.
Yeah.
I think it really was a good pickup. And these are things that we have to take secondhand from players, because you don't get to be in the practice room with them and see what actually is going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a weird situation, because I think I agree with you that I like the sandwich, the Huni glue sandwich more, golden Huni.
Ooh, the glue sandwich.
The glue sandwich. I mean, I feel like I like that more in practice. But if you were to break it down to my archetypes of how I think about them, then I would almost always rather have the aggressive mid-stable top laner. And so it's kind of a weird situation where the one that I think has looked better is not how I would personally want to build a team. And I think a lot of that comes to what you're saying about the type of player who needs. I just feel like he's so dynamic in a way, and it just feels to me like if this was like Madden and they had overall ratings, to me it feels like the average rating of Goldenglue and Huni is just higher than the average rating of Jiizuke and Kumo, where I feel like Goldenglue is good at, I don't think he's that much of a downgrade from Jiizuke, and I feel like just the way that he plays is different, where you couldn't even say it's a side grade depending on what you are trying to do. Whereas it feels to me like Huni is almost always, because Huni gets this weird flack for not being able to play tanks, but one of the best stretches of his professional career was 2017 spring when he was on SKT and they slammed everything, and a lot of that was Huni playing tanks. And I feel like that's something that you just gotta watch. And I think it goes to your comment about the Zeyzal interview, the Vulcan interview, where in NA in particular, Huni has not been on particularly great teams since Immortals, and when that's the case, you're gonna feel pressured to make extra plays on the map, and that's gonna make you look pretty bad sometimes. That's not to take all the blame off Huni, because there are definitely been times where he's just getting killed at level 2, level 3. Even in this game this past weekend, he had a really questionable flash on the Blabber. The game ended up working out, but he'll take these plays that you just kind of scratch your head over, and he'll make them over and over. But I like seeing that from a player. I feel like EG has more win conditions when they have Huni and Goldenglue in, versus, because I feel like both of them can start working towards being a win condition, whereas when Kumo is in, he is never a win condition and never has been a win condition for EG.
I know Kumo got some very good top lane stats a lot through embracing Volibear really early when Volibear was released, and I thought he had a lot of good games on that, playing it super aggressively early on in lane. So he got a bunch of good CS numbers and trading numbers and stuff. And I was one of the people that was pretty outspoken, he had real improvements this year that I thought were substantial, but I kind of still, like I said, prefer the Huni Goldenglue combination, because for sure Zoe, that's definitely in there for Goldenglue. I think his Orianna, these types of champions that are, there's no way they're getting patched out of the meta, right? There's always going to be a place for these mid to long range control mages.
Wow, we might delete Zoe eventually. I mean, we might cave in and listen.
See, that's the thing. I'm like, people have been asking about Zoe for a long time, and they have not caved. And since there haven't been recent changes to the champion, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that it's sticking where it is. but also your earlier point where you're talking about. Plus, remember they've got Bang in the bottom side to try and play around for later if they want to, and that type of play I think is going to be more consistent because obviously the thing with almost all of our teams that we've been pointing to has been consistency, and for EG a lot of that comes from Jiizuke's performance in the games. You can almost go to 90% of their games and just look at Jiizuke and Jiizuke's score and tell me if they won or lost, or even look at the champion and tell me if they won or lost.
Yeah, and it's definitely a shame that we might not see, like, just depending on how well this goes, we might not see Jiizuke for the rest of the split. Like, would be a shame because he was one of my players even during their slump. Was like very clearly, if you were to take MVP candidates and look at it just for pure value and not like this is the best player in the league, like in terms of pure value, EG was so reliant on him for everything that he was an MVP candidate in the sense of just being extremely valuable to his team. So definitely would be a shame if we were to lose him, but gotta do what you can to get the win right now. So it's definitely a weird dilemma for them where, like you said, the best is that crossover probably between Jiizuke and Huni. Huni, I think, has citizenship or NA residency rather next spring. So we are close to that, but unfortunately right now they got to make do with what they have.
Yeah. And of course, the other side of it was the whole reason I started talking about that was it was one of the Cloud9 losses.
Yes.
And I'm incredibly hyped for the Cloud9 Team Liquid game coming up.
It's our first good regular season game, I think. And maybe first good game period. Or not. I don't know if it's going to be good, but it's the first one I feel like I'm actually excited and hyped for literally all year. Because Cloud9 was just so dominant in the spring that I never felt like anybody, and nobody ever ended up challenging them. The same thing happened all the way up to now. And finally, we have a 10-2 Liquid versus 10-2 Cloud9.
Yeah, and for me also, I always like when it's different styles of teams clashing.
Yeah.
Not only is this two teams tied trying to get that first place spot, but they're so different. Last split, I was tweeting out like, "Oh my goodness, I'm so glad that our number one team is this hyper aggressive, proactive, mid jungle, roaming all over the place, creating action, rolling over games super quickly team, because that inspires more of our other teams to follow in this action-packed, fun for viewers type of game." But you remember you also bringing up, does this mean these other styles are dead?
Yeah.
And Team Liquid's here like just slowly climbing up. It's not dead. We're coming for you. Really, they've been talking about trying to embrace more proactive play. Jensen had a tweet after their victory last week where he was like, yeah, another good win. Still wish we could be more proactive. Broxa has tweeted out about it a lot after a lot of the weeks, and talked about it in interviews where he's like looking back at replays and he sees these moments where he wonders, why am I not fighting here? Why are we not fighting here? And he also kind of vocally talked about the proactivity issue, which is very interesting to me because Cloud9 said the opposite after their losses, where they're like, all right, we got a little too crazy. We're going to calm it back down here and play a little bit more controlled.
Do you feel like that's why C9 lost? Because I feel like, I don't know if that's even the right thing when I was watching those games. It wasn't like they were just too crazy. I felt like they just got clapped. Like, it wasn't like a situation where they like threw a lead or they were, 5-man diving a turret and they all died on it. Like, that's not really what happened. They just lost skirmish here, they lost skirmish there, and it felt basically so. I mean, Cloud9's game plan essentially, and we talked about this, is Blabber, Niski, win mid, win jungle, or they don't even have to win it. They just go win a different lane, but they moved around together and they force a play. Usually, the way I've seen it pan out is they go top and they dive top. That's been a very hallmark Cloud9 play. That was punished and their lost streak, the 2 games that they couldn't quite pull out. And I felt like, I mean, that's kind of painted at some other things. And you mentioned this on a previous episode about how Zeyzal talked about, well, Cloud9's winning because they just win lane and they can just move on from there. It's easy. And that wasn't happening in those games. They were getting punished on early dives and they weren't able to take, like, Blabber would just end up dying. There was one move I remember where he went to a regank top lane and he sat in the bush and he just sat and he ended up getting killed because he didn't expect them to come back. I thought it was a really weird play to see from him. It was not a good stretch of games from him by any stretch of the imagination. So is this are we seeing Cloud9 unravel a bit, or is it just kind of bad games?
I don't think that it was, oh, we took too many risks, or we overextended, or we had these throwaway bad games, because both of the games had a lot of similarities. If you go back and look at them, kind of like you're saying, these early skirmishes emerge, and 100 Thieves, either through really good proactive aggressive jungling from contracts, trying to combine with Someday to get Someday a lead, and then Someday being very aggressive and invading C9 jungle and taking down Blabber, then being backed up by a Galio mid, perfect pick, by the way. Really like the drafts from both EG and 100 Thieves in their games, and that transitioning into Dragon Control. Then in the EG game, a lot of other very similar issues with it, where, again, it's one of these big skirmishes down on the bottom side. I remember Zoe Goldenglue lands a bubble on Licorice as he tries to flash in. He flashes in and is asleep, gives over another kill. Boom, more Dragon Control. Both of these games, Cloud9 lose soul. Like, they just get 4 straight dragons snowballed on by Cloud9, or excuse me, by 100 Thieves, and then by EG. And in both of the games, one of the pivotal pieces that we've been talking about is Niski was on Syndra and then Cassiopeia. Not these Galio type, Twisted Fate type, or even the old like Pantheon Kiana stuff that used to go roaming around with Blabber as much. So that's one of those combinations that they were kind of missing. And then in their smash of FlyQuest afterwards, they were like, we were testing some stuff out, and we decided to bring out the big guns, Galio, Galista, and smash them. And we're like, okay, Cloud9 got mad, and got back to that style. So that's why I think a lot of credit goes to the winners in both of the games versus Cloud9, rather than being as much detracting. Yes, there were still mistakes, but I thought that both EG and 100 Thieves crafted really good drafts and played to those game plans, keeping the pressure on Cloud9 for duration, rather than just having this one moment where their opponents mess up.
Yeah, I mean, it was the Gangplank pick as well. Like, just having that global ultimate from Gangplank and then the semi-global from Galio, I think just countered a lot of what Cloud9 wants to do. They basically got punished. Like, the way Cloud9 is so good is they sneak into these pockets for macro-wise where teams don't expect them to get there that quick, or they're not ready for it. And so they can steal a dragon from their nose. They can go steal a Rip
Or they can't do anything about it because it's an Olaf who has early priority, and then Niski's got whatever.
He has Karma can go support. He has the Galio to drop in, the Twisted Fate to come in, and they just didn't have that, but they still played like they did, and then they got punished because the other team had those tools. And I feel like that was just I feel like that's something that they very clearly can identify as well. It's like, oh, okay, this is where we screwed up. It's just a mismatch in terms of how you want to execute the comps they were playing versus what their regular strategy was. And I feel like we're going to see them revert back to form this week. Like, and both teams being 10-2, gotta make this. I am very excited for this. 2, Cloud9 is still the overwhelming favorite here, and I don't think you'll find very many analysts who disagree with that. Weird as it sounds, if Liquid wins this, it would 100% be an upset. And like, honestly, I don't. This is a bit of a spoiler, if you will, but when this or that, actually, I forget what comes out first, this or that. But when this or that comes out, I think one of the slides, I forget if they ended up using it or not, was pick one, C9 wins in under 33 minutes.
Yeah, we got that one.
Or Team Liquid wins. And I feel like that is a pretty fair thing. Is like, I personally would pick Cloud9 wins under 33 minutes. I expect them to win over TL in about a 30-minute stomp. That's just the way that the style. Like,
that's how game 1 went. Game 1 was a Cloud9 win in about 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's better. It's a mismatch in styles. I don't feel like Team Liquid's going to be able to keep up the pace unless we get to see the more proactivity, as long as Cloud9 doesn't screw up the draft, right?
So the things that people have been critical of Team Liquid of very recently have, of course, been Broxa.
Yeah.
Because of the game where he got memed on for farming on Graves and not being a part of.
It was insurance, man. It was insurance Graves. If they threw, he was scaling. So.
Yeah. But I mean, this is one of the things, some of the things I wanted to point out to highlight what Team Liquid did well, because I know in the previous weeks, a lot of people were like, yeah, they don't deserve these wins, or yeah, I don't really trust this team. They're still really shaky to me. But I invested in the LCS stock game in Team Liquid in the previous buy period, and now I am the richest.
Trading.
I'm the richest that anyone has ever been in the LCS stock game.
Wait, wow.
Yeah.
Wait, what's your value at?
I just learned that it's 6,900 and something.
Oh.
So thank you, paid by Steve and Jatt. But the reason I did that is because of some of the tenets that have held true in their games.
Yeah.
And that is they always will still keep a hyper focus on what is their win condition, no matter what kind of bumps they hit early on in the game. And yes, people can be critical of them drafting around. In the majority of the games, a lot of them have been later stages where, like, okay, you need 2 or 3 core items on X carry. And that's going to be the main goal that they're trying to get to. Not all of their games have been like that. They've had a lot of TF games, by the way, for Jensen.
Yep.
They made really good use of Impact Shen and kind of using the global as a threat to earn objectives without their opponents confronting them. Yeah. That's not Team Liquid's fault if their opponents are not going to confront them, and Team Liquid gets objectives without having to expend cooldowns, without having to cause blood. That's one of the art of war. One of the great recommendations is like, all right, the perfect battle is where you actually don't have to spill blood and you just gain territory without having to do that. Yeah. So I'm not blaming Team Liquid for that, even though it's not as fun to watch. Mm-hmm. And I think they've done a really good job with, like I said, keeping their eyes on those win conditions. When they've got Zoe Ezreal, they don't go charging into the opponent team. They make the opponent team try and charge into their long range abilities, thus giving them an advantage. And specifically, I also want to call out how they fight around Mordekaiser, because not a lot of other teams have either been picking Mordekaiser, and even when they do, there's not a lot of success with the champion. But Impact, in multiple Mordekaiser games, not only will he still have the pressure, in a side lane, and he'll draw a jungler, gank or something like that, and he'll go 1-for-1 and go down and draw pressure, and the team gets something somewhere else. But also in critical moments, he makes big plays for the team, for team fighting. Yeah. Obviously, in the early stages of Summer, there was the one where he gets multiple picks on Golden Guardians to win the whole game for Team Liquid. And he's like flashing in, or he gets DeMonte and gets the pick to win the game. But also later on, the team has done really well to coordinate around the exact time that he's coming out of the death realm with his 1v1 with, even though it's a support, he gets the extra stats. Then they have the extra front line, and then they win the team fight because they're timing it so well, not engaging, kind of playing on the range of the opponent team. And then as soon as they time 3, 2, 1, I'm coming out, they win the entire team fight, and it's not just like a single pick.
Yeah, I think for sure that one of the, like, when I say that they're the underdog here, I still think they've very clearly been the second best team. The last 2 weeks, as you mentioned in particular, have been great. Like that Shen game, one of the things in the Art of War as well, one of the key tenets is it says pick Shen for impact, I think is article number 3.
I do remember reading that.
Yeah, I think it's a really old school one. And I mean, his Shen was just so good. I think he was basically up 100 CS, and I think that was the game against CLG when they had Deuce come in, and a rookie guy coming in. It's gonna happen, but it's good to see impact on a comfort pick like that, and it gives them a lot of options. Like you said, we haven't seen anybody else really play much Shen, much Mordekaiser, and so I do think there's a lot of interesting things happening with their draft. It's not as boring as people say it is. I mean, even though Jensen played a 0 like 6 games in a row, there's a lot of, like, the Bard pick from Core JJ, I think, is a really interesting. Like other people have played it, Biofrost played it, but I do think Core JJ's Bard has been insanely good. Yeah, and that if you have a good Bard, that throws another wrench into the pick ban phase for other teams. It can stop a lot of what Cloud9 is doing. When we were talking about these global things that can kind of delay objectives, Bard is extremely good at helping you if you are slow to a dragon or slow to a baron, because he can just stasis the dragon, stasis the baron, and that gives you a good 3 seconds or whatever to come set up and actually contest the objective.
And even if you give up a Rift Herald, he multiple times, we saw even 2 times in the same game, like both Rift Heralds that were taken by the opponent team, he immunes the tower that it charges into it, and they're like, well, I guess that was that's the whole point of this objective that we just spent all of our time on. No charge, no money here.
CoreJJ flashes like an emote or something. That's it.
That's one of the funniest ones. So yeah, talking about denial, the Bard is very good at denying a lot of those earlier objectives.
And it's not like. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add on that it was also used really well to get some of the picks, like in their long range comps when they had Ezreal, Zoe, and Ornn.
Yeah, I was just to say that on top of that, CoreJJ. So today, the LCS Twitter account, I don't know if you saw this, but they released a poll that had all 5 players on it and asked fans to vote. Okay, which player do you think is better in each position? And across the board, it was all C9 except for support, which when I last saw, CoreJJ was winning about 57% to 43%. Vulcan is still extremely good. Don't get me wrong. I think this is going to be the closest first team All-Pro vote in the entire ballot is between Vulcan and CoreJJ. Both of them very deserving. Could go either way, and maybe it will literally come down to who wins this game. But that every other one, it was like 80% Licorice. It was like 80% Blabber. I think even Niski was winning like 70%, which I was kind of surprised. But maybe that one was a little closer. But like all of them.
Looking at it right now, Reaper's also crushing Jatt.
Oh, rest in peace.
Another one for Cloud9.
Rest in peace, Jatt.
CoreJJ is at 56.7%. Okay. So
he's the only. What was the Jatt? I think Jensen one was maybe the second one then, because I think Sven was crushing tactical as well. So I think the Jensen Niski one was a little close.
Ooh, Licorice is just dominating impact. I think Blabber's the most one-sided. He's 81%. The Jensen Niski's pretty close, and Jensen's 45 to.
Okay, so that's really close then. Yeah. So those are the ones that are really close, but CoreJJ be the only one that's actually winning that vote. I thought it was a real testament that I think everybody can see the level of play he's brought to the table this split. We're not that far removed from him having won an MVP, completely right in the ship for Team Liquid, was probably the most valuable player in the league all year long in 2019. So it's good to see him kind of rise up to the occasion again after their slow start. And so on paper, there's a lot of strong matchups in this game. I don't think anybody individually is completely outclassed. It'll be interesting to see. This is Jatt's first, I think, major test as a coach in terms of like big, high stakes games, and it'll be interesting to see, what kind of draft will he put out? Is he gonna throw 4 support picks at us? Probably not. I have faith in you, Jatt. Please help us out on that one. But when you look at it, and we were talking about this earlier about their slow play style, and they're saying, "Oh, I want to be more proactive. I want to be more proactive." Some of that comes down to the coaching. And you having, and both of us know Jatt on some level for years now. When you think about the way Jatt has, or the way you think that Jatt has approached the game, both as a player and as an analyst, when we say we want more proactivity, does that kind of fit what you expect from what he has liked and wanted from teams? Or
no, and me and Jatt have talked about it a lot. We play each other in random show matches and stuff. And I'm always the one that goes for more gank heavy junglers, and he's always focused on what route he can farm the best. He's like, all right, so I got this new Amumu strat, or this new Trundle strat, or this new Udyr strat where I farm this way and I can try and get to my level 6 fast enough. And he's always complaining about his solo queue where he's just like, you people, you need to be quiet until I'm level 6. Or, so I feel like he's much more objective minded and farming minded. Which
it feels like it kind of rubbed off on the team a bit, right?
Well, for me, I was like, that was what Team Liquid always was. They were always those players were always that type of more slow, built for 5-on-5 style teams. Even when they had double bluffing, and maybe even especially because they have double, they want to do win bottom lane, but then mostly team fight with later game scaling carries. So that's why when he joined, I thought, that makes a lot of sense, that pairing, because that seemed like what Team Liquid kind of felt already. And the question was going to be, does it change a lot with tactical and Broxa? And since I heard the interviews with Broxa talking about, the wishful proactive thinking, that's where I thought maybe some of the changes were actually going to come from was from the player changes.
Do you think like in VOD reveal, like that Graves game, great Jatt's going through it, it's like, oh, pathing here is beautiful. I'm just, yeah, look at you resisted the
he
temptation.
Would probably be like, you should actually be about 20 CS up more than you are right now.
Yeah, but good on you to resist the temptation to gank the lane right here. Just isolate top lane. Just let them do whatever. Good job, Broxa. Like that's exactly what you want to see from a jungler is no ganks, just farm. Good pathing, all that stuff.
Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting whenever we have these matchups of super different style teams to see who can actually come out on top. Who's going to bend to the other team's style? Who's going to basically attack the other team's strength rather than build on their own strength because they're different?
So let us both give a piece of advice to Jatt, who I know will 100% tune into everything and listen to everything we say. And if I were to give Jatt one piece of advice, I would tell him pick a pushing top laner, because to me, Cloud9 is most dangerous when you let your top laner get pushed in and then they dive your top laner. So I would preempt that by being the one that has the pushing top. So I would give Shen or Impact the winning lane. Mordekaiser is a very good potential pick here. Anything that lets him win the lane and avoid the dive. Like Mordekaiser is just great overall as a counter dive, even if he does get pushed in. So I do feel like my key to beating Cloud9 for TL is give Impact a pushing top laner so they can't dive top. And if they can't dive top, it's going to be hard for them to make plays elsewhere.
I would say focus Niski in your bans for me. I say don't let him get his hands on Twisted Fate, Galileo, these types of things. And I feel like if you focus Niski with the bans, then that helps you a lot in your Jensen Broxa versus Niski Blabber combination.
So I think we could actually combine both of the things we said. We basically came up with a game plan for Team Liquid and for Jatt. So
save your counter pick for impacts maybe.
Yeah, feel free to take our advice and win the game, Jatt. That is that's what we got for you. Another team I wanted to hit this week is TSM. So this is a team that they're sitting third in the LCS, clearly 7-5. I could not tell you, like if aliens came down and I had to and I was the last line of defense and they were just asking questions and they point their little laser beam at my head and say, is TSM good or not? And they needed an answer. I would freeze.
You would say, yes. Are they good or not? Yes.
Yes. Right. And I mean, it's one of those like, I don't know what to make of this team other than we are looking at another split where their defensive, the Dark Arts position, jungle, has struggled a lot. Broken Blade has not looked very good this split either, and they've rotated Biofrost out for Treats, who I honestly, if you had removed the nameplate over this past weekend, I could not tell the difference between Biofrost or Treats. It didn't seem like very much changed in bringing a new player in. Bjergsen's been having a great split, and Double Up's just kind of been there. Nothing particularly spectacular. I don't know what to make of this team. In the spring, they at least had an identity, which was Dardoch almost always won early game for them, and then sometimes he would kind of int that lead away. This split, they're not even getting to that point where they have these leads sometimes to throw away, and yet they still have 7 wins. They're getting a lot of really sloppy lats. Like people talk about Team Liquid, quote-unquote, deserving or not deserving wins. TSM's been in a very similar boat with a lot of their wins. What do you make of this team?
And I mean, it applies, like we kind of talked about at the beginning, to a lot of the teams where in these best of ones especially, and we're seeing so much inconsistency from a lot of the teams. But in the specific positions, I think most people are going to be hottest on top and jungle, Broken Blade and Spica. Because specifically this last weekend, what you're talking about for Spica, the face check at level 1, and then if you go back and watch the video, TSM even read question mark ping on the blue buff as Spica walks down there, and so it's basically back-to-back face checks into areas that they think that the opponents could be in, and you get punished by this hard CC pick and get killed. Then it wasn't just that problem though. A lot of people turn their brains off at that point because you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a big jungle diff. It's an Olaf that got killed twice pre-5 minutes. That is really rough. That's supposed to be one of the biggest strengths of the champion. But then they also have kind of crushing losses in top lane and then a rotation from bottom lane up, they got the random kill onto Bjergsen. And so at that point, you're just like, oh my, okay, now it's actually over. Like even Bjergsen is dying because Bjergsen has been the one, I think, putting in the most work for this team and getting them a lot of their wins. But back to like the two hottest positions or the two most contested, I guess, right now, I kind of came into this year wondering what they were going to do with Broken Blade. I love watching TSM Legends, and his personality just like carries so much of it, and you can tell that he's a really big part of the team atmosphere and the team life. But there are specific champions like Gangplank and stuff where I'm just like, wait a second, what are they getting out of here? Because it seems like there's something missing. And with Spica, I'm a little bit more forgiving just because he's way younger and doesn't take up an import spot. So that's a bit the breaker for me where I kind of shift to like, okay, I give him a little bit more leeway, but I think those are going to be the main issues. It's not like we haven't seen Broken Blade perform extremely well for TSM. There's a lot of games where you point back to even some of his tank games, his Poppy games, Ornn games, where he was one of the biggest parts of the win. But those are the two where I'm most concerned about.
Yeah, and it's just at the point where we've seen enough games from them. We're 2/3 of the way through the split that I don't personally have much confidence in seeing there's not going to be sorry to TSM fans to spoil it to you. There isn't going to be some miracle turnaround where this team suddenly looks like one of the best teams in the league. These type of inconsistency issues have just plagued them the entire year, and it's likely to just plague them for the rest of the split. It's just hard for me to see. And like I said, one of the problems when you're kind of at this, because they're still third in the league and in this middle of the pack, one of the problems I think is you're not desperate enough, like some of the lower teams. Like we saw Immortals literally rotate all 5 players out. Other teams have rotated 2-3 players out, and they've rotated out key veteran players. Like 100 Thieves rotated out Meteos was a pretty big surprise. We've seen Wild Turtle get sat on FlyQuest, which is a pretty big one as well. And I am just at the point where TSM's gonna make the playoffs. Going beyond that is in such jeopardy that I am personally wondering, why would you not take an opportunity to try a few different things with the remaining games, especially because your academy team is actually very good. And I'm not going to say for sure Broken Blade's the issue or Spica is the issue, but I will say that you don't have much to lose. And I appreciated swapping Treats in, but it felt like a weird, that was the last position almost, or one of the, it never felt like a situation where you needed to switch. I didn't think Biofrost was having a bad split, and Treats was not. He didn't show up in a major way on the Rift. Again, we only have one real game from him because the Olaf game was such a tragedy.
He has been really good in Academy.
Yeah,
and I kind of support the putting in the Treats move. And it is the beginning, and one of the games that got smashed on, so didn't get a lot of data there. But the Leona game, they did get a 2v2 kill in the bottom lane. So I think if there is another big shift for TSM this year, right now, I honestly think they should shift to having Broken Blade on a little bit more conservative of a role. Like I said, I remember a lot of very good games from him on a lot of tank champions, and I don't think he has to be on a carry for this team to operate, especially now with double lift in the bottom side. And if they are trying to win that side of the map, and it goes right into the current meta of controlling dragons and building for Dragon Soul. And I actually do think that sitting down Spica and reviewing those games, both of them, it wasn't just the face check game, but I think that he can quickly learn and can quickly, especially the face check one is very quick, all right, you see what's wrong here, right? It's like, yes, I clearly see what's wrong. And it's similar to, remember after the Kane game, we were just like, what the heck is going on? And he had this really quick bounce back with the Lee Sin one right afterwards. And then everyone was like, all right, never mind, I changed my mind. I love this guy. He's amazing. Popping up, big jungle difference. I think that is where my faith in TSM would come from. And they are really well positioned in the standings already. So as much as there's not certainty for a lot of teams below Cloud9 and Team Liquid, TSM definitely is a front runner below those ones for me still. I do think that whatever's going on, maybe my advice would be shift Broken Blade to a more conservative role. Not necessarily only playing tanks or anything like that. I don't think you need to hamstring yourself in draft, but keeping that in mind as far as how you want to holistically approach the map.
Yeah, I think that's a good piece of advice. Hopefully, I mean, just one of those, something's got to change, and it's got to be pretty drastic. I don't know how easy it is to just be like, oh, this is what we have to do. Play style, just completely change it. But TSM is definitely not in a position that I would be happy with if I was them. Fortunately for them, though, that's true for literally every other team in this block.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because I'm like, they're in third place, right? So
yeah. So I mean, third place gets you to Worlds. Whether that's enough or not, hard to say. But I mean, they're still like, I mean, there's after TSM, it's like this hodgepodge of like FlyQuest, Golden Guardians. Actually, Golden Guardians is a team that's on the up for me.
Golden Guardians, FlyQuest, EG are all tied at 6 and 6 even.
And they're all kind of in that same bracket. And then you start hitting the bottom of the table, which is like the CLGs, the 100 Thieves, Dig Diamond. Like those are the teams that TSM's going to, like, they'll be fine against those teams in the long run. You want to make sure you can get over that cluster of the 6 and 6 teams, though.
How about this? Are you more excited for FlyQuest or 100 Thieves right now? Because 100 Thieves are 4 and 8.
Yeah.
Well, FlyQuest are dead even at 6 and 6. They're 2 games extra up on 100 Thieves.
Oh yeah.
So, but for some reason, I have this like, I don't know, excitement around the team because ever since they added contracts in Poom and they start putting someday on matchups like Camille into Ornn and stuff, I'm like, that type of stuff is getting me excited. And obviously the Cloud9 win is going to be a big part of that. But anytime a team makes a move to be super aggressive like that and puts in a player change along those lines, it gets me, I'm a fan. I'm hyped.
So you get me really easy out here by using the word, are you excited? By using excited.
Okay, excited. Okay. Yeah.
So am I ever excited for FlyQuest? I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be really blunt. I'm sorry to FlyQuest fans who tune into this. FlyQuest might be the most boring team in the LCS. Just bar none.
But they put Turtle back in.
Yeah. Even just the way, it's not even about the individual players. I think there's a lot of great personalities on this team. I think their branding's been really cool. I just think their play style is just so boring. And there's nothing about this roster that makes me think, oh yeah, this is the team that I got to tune into them every single week to catch this game because it's going to be awesome. Because it's not going to be awesome. What's going to happen is they're going to pick a scaling comp and they're either going to scale or they're going to die before they get there. That's it. There is very little variation in their play. 100 Thieves, like you mentioned, brought in new players. It's exciting for me to watch Poom. Like, even when Poom is randomly getting caught out, it's nice for me to see that. Because, like, oh, here is a guy who made a mistake because he stepped 1 pixel forward that he didn't realize was a bad spot to be. And that's a learning moment for him. I love seeing that kind of thing. I love seeing contracts play aggressively. It's an exciting, and 100 Thieves will also give me some, bananas games. Like someday we'll go off here or there. I don't like FlyQuest, clearly the better team in my opinion, but almost everybody below FlyQuest is more exciting to them. Maybe with the exception of CLG, who I mean, I was kind of mean to them in 10 Thoughts this week when just thinking about look, there's just nothing on the CLG roster that it's very similar to the FlyQuest thing where it's like they're not making very many moves that are very exciting. I don't know who they could really bring in. They tried to bring in a new top laner instead of Ruin, and he got Flame Horizon basically 2 games in a row, and so they kind of shifted away from that.
Then they put Ruin back in, and Ruin's Camille game where they focus all their early ganks trying to get his Camille ahead, and then his Camille in back-to-back critical dragon fights, the 3rd dragon fight and the Dragon Soul fight, almost only does damage to the enemy Ornn in both of these fights.
I mean, it's rough. Not much exciting about CLG. It is a team like I don't even feel like obviously they tried removing Ruin, that didn't change very much. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything you can do with this team. This to me, like if I were to take bets today and you were to tell me to make I don't know if this is even a crazy bet, and I had to guess which team would finish 10th at the end of the regular season, I would probably put CLG towards the top of that ranking, and they would 100% be there if it wasn't for the fact that they have a 2-game lead on 100 and Dignitas already. But in terms of who I currently if this was actually a power ranking, CLG would probably be number 10 for me. It's been very uninspiring. They've been, I think, 1-5 in their last 6 games. Has not been a good stretch.
Yeah.
So
I think that probably the other contender people are going to put up there for you are Dig with their even though after they made the swaps, they're 3-4 out of their last 4 games. Sounds pretty good. Because the last one was that latest first blood, this split in the LCS. And did you know that game also tied 2014? There was a CLG game, I think Curse for CLG, for lowest kills of any LCS game in the history of the LCS. We went all the way back to 2014.
It's a 4-0 game.
They tied it.
I mean, that's like I said, at the top of the show, we had some of what I thought were the worst games all year. This was one of them. This was one of them where they lost their nexus with all of their players just like dancing in front of the fountain. It was like trying to like, oh, do we fight now? And then the nexus died. It's like, oh, I guess we probably should have fought sometime before this moment when the nexus is dead. It was not a pretty game, but they did look pretty good in those 3 wins before that, so I was more willing.
It was Curse vs CLG in 2014, by the way. That's the one they tied.
I mean that would be the because people talk about, oh, we should do more classic show matches. I would love to get like a Curse CL, like an old school Curse CLG.
Get all them back together.
Yeah,
I would like. Yeah. There's definitely some good ones. Like we've got the 80-minute The Dream game. That one was super famous, and then of course the Dig one where Crumbs was a part of it. I think he was the one who died to Rift Herald. Then 2 people got executed on turrets from both sides. Both teams are getting executed.
Give us some of those kind of I don't want the good classic teams necessarily. Give me some of those like more
now that they've aged well.
Yeah.
We can even get we'll bring little extra taste.
Bring back like a Maple Street or something, like some of the old Renegade or what is it, Velocity type of teams or whatever. So actually, tangentially related, I want to give CLG something fun to think about after kind of not being very nice to them. If you had to create a classic CLG roster as an ex-CLG member yourself, what is your like, and a longtime CLG guy, what is your definitive classic roster? Does it actually include the one you're on, or is it a different one?
It breaks my heart to say it, but probably the one with Saint Vicious instead of me.
So the one
because he played with them a lot longer. They had way more success, even though technically I had 100% win rate and I won the gold medal. I think most fans would also say the one with Saint Vicious, GG, Hotshot, Jouster, that lineup. And so I would probably agree, even though I still can claim original.
But maybe we could sub you in, and actually it'd be interesting to get the old casters. Like, so your CLG versus Dignitas with Jatt. I feel like that would be the next iteration of your show matches against each other.
Yeah, I feel like we always smash them. By the way, we talked about this. I think Jatt said that they beat us one time, but I was like, I really don't remember that. I don't remember ever losing.
Oh,
really.
We're setting up the trash talking. Let's get this. Yeah. Let's get this on the road. Producers, make sure you look into this. Get the old Dignitas versus old Kobe CLG.
Real quick though, the last one I wanted to hit on for the teams was Immortals. We're talking about all the bottom teams. Did you know Insanity with his Kog'Maw and Karthus picks now has the highest damage per minute of any player in the LCS, and he's only played 8 games, but 8 games is decent. It's not like a sample size of like 2 games or something. But him playing these super high DPS, AP scaling carries, I think is a cool look for them to jump at an identity.
Mm-hmm. Were you impressed by his performances on those games? Sometimes this feels to me like, when you're in a solo queue game and you're Ezreal that does no damage, finishes the game with most damage in the game still, because he lands Qs here or there, but he's completely useless in fights. Was that the case of this? Or?
Let me tell you, it did, because our other AP cog was the Jiizuke one. There you go. See, that's the response that so I don't know. I think it's cool, and I have liked how the rookies that they actually brought with the older players have been performing on unique picks. It's like all right, sweet, I'll watch these games. Alorum's Urgot. He's been playing for years, and nobody else is playing Urgot right now. That's pretty cool, exciting. He smashes lane at least. Yeah, they end up losing the game, but and then we get AP Cog, which I think is super strong. Karthus, I think, is just ridiculously strong after the buffs because it can also be triple flexed. I expect for upcoming games for it to actually be played AD carry.
People playing AD soon. Now. What do you run? Yeah. What do you run lane with, Karthus?
For me, CC supports a lot of the time. Anything that can, honestly, even just slows help a lot. But mostly at hard CC. Thresh to me is just, I would say, best like overall universal support pick right now because it does so many things.
Yeah.
But these types of things that can set up for your Qs to get your isolated Q damage. It's supports that can help it so that you don't have to share Q damage with minions or anything like that. And Karthus bottom actually does a lot of work.
Oh yeah. Keep your eyes peeled for that. I will say one last thing about the Kog'Maw pick that I find funny, and I'm kind of curious when I'm watching casters cast this is, you'll say something like, "Oh, look at Cog rain artillery on the enemy team." Then you'll be watching the gameplay, and I remember one specific moment of this happening where Insanity was just throwing Q after Q after Q, R after R after R because he had blue buff, he had the Ocean Soul, and he missed like 12 in a row. It was something stupid like that. And he still had like full men, but it's just funny for me to sit there and watch it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh yeah, like so he's doing so much.
Yeah.
Because I guess he is doing a lot because it forces the enemy team to move. It's one of those things where you can't see, but it's just funny to watch. Like, oh, he's actually just literally missing all of them. Even though he is generating a lot of pressure. Cog's one of those champs is just really weird for me to watch because it's like, he sure is missing a lot of CS there, and then we'll hit like one and like, oh, it does so much damage, and like tickle down for like 30%. It's like, which is a lot, but it's one of those things. It's just a lot less impressive to watch than it's one of those things where it's way more effective than it looks. And so shout out to Insanity for having a decent game on Kog'Maw. I personally hate the pick. I hope it dies. If we could nerf it so I don't ever have to see it.
I honestly want Karthus nerfed in the jungle too because I don't really like
it, so. Yeah, nerf Insanity. That is the nerf all of his champions.
All right.
Cool. Last thing I want to say before we close out the episode, though, is I do want to give a shout out to the Twitch Rivals format, which I think is really awesome, which is the current one they're doing right now. It's like
triathlon.
Yeah, the triathlon of sorts. They did the Legends of Runeterra, Teamfight Tactics. Now they're on the League of Legends portions. I want to give a shout out especially to the TFT boys. I think they're literally called the boys. It's like 5 of the highest TFT challenger players. And they ended up taking first in Legends of Runeterra card game, similar type of skill. They went 1, 2, and 3 in TFT and completely destroyed it, as you might expect. And I think they went 0 and 6 in League of Legends after though. So it was a good run, boys. But do your best going forward. But I think the format is awesome. That's something that I hope, because we do this internal Rumble tournament every year at Riot. Something I would like to see us potentially adopt is this kind of League of Legends, or not League, but a Riot triathlon. I think it's a really cool format. I wish there was a way for us to do like a cross platform for like do a clash type of event across multiple platforms so that you can sign up with your team of 5 and you have a chance to compete across all 4 games we have out right now. I think that'd be really awesome to see. So, cool to see that kind of thing.
Yeah. I like that style because I'm high level at all the games. I'm not like exceptional at Runeterra. I haven't played it as much, but I got pretty high in TFT also. And I'm like pretty high in League. So I feel like I would be good at it. I'm always really just insanely impressed though by people that are the next level up, like challenger, right? I feel like I can usually get diamond in whatever game, and then some games I can poke my head up to like masters or whatever. But Huni and Shifter are 2 of the players that I have just played random games with before, where I'm like, oh my goodness, it is not fair. They are like global elite challenger, whatever the top is in all these different type of games. They're probably even beasts at Rocket League and random ass stuff that is controllers and all these like different things. They're just like exceptional at all video games. So those types of players always make me really jealous, where they can actually just hit peak in so many different ones.
I think Huni might have been rank 1 on Overwatch at one point.
Yeah, he was really good at that.
Yeah.
He's so good at shooters. So if you have there are some skill sets where you're like, all right, these types of games I know you're going to be good at. Where I'm like, all right, strategy games, I got that.
Sure.
MMOs and stuff too, like all those types of things. I'm terrible at shooter games though. If you have that plus, the strategy plus shooter, I feel like those are the Venn diagram that you get most things.
That's what I want to see. That would be a really cool. Like if we do another, like maybe for All Stars, maybe this. I'm actually going to pitch this to the people. Okay. Is for All Stars. That's what we should have, is have some sort of format like this, because there are some players like Jensen I think he's immortal at Valorant as well. I think Sven Skaren's also very highly rated.
Jensen got high rated in WoW arenas too.
Yeah, I mean that's where he was initially famous. He might not want to talk about that as much these days. You can Google that if you're not sure why Kobe laughed about that one. But Jensen's he's a gamer right there, through and through. That I'm gonna make this pitch for All Stars. That's what we should do. We should also have the casters be part of you guys should be one of the teams participating in All Stars. Start training for it.
All right. I guess that's going to do it for this episode of 10 Thoughts. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to tune into the LCS. I'm catching all the games this weekend because last week Azale gave me a break, so I'm giving him a break this week. Start on Friday as usual for Friday Night League.